Good evening, everybody. I'm Rory Holiday. I'm a physiotherapist and I'm going to be teaching you some Pilates this evening. I'm going to be targeting muscles around the hips and knees today. So if you're managing a lower limb injury or you're a runner and you want to get your legs a little bit stronger, these might be some useful exercises for you. We're going to keep things quite brief with each exercise, so don't be afraid to pause the video, spend a little bit longer in each one if you want to, or come back to them a little bit later. We're going to be needing two pieces of equipment. We need three: a mat, a towel, and either a exercise step, or in this case I've got a thick book, because a lot of people do not have exercise steps at home. So a thick book or a couple of thick books will be absolutely fine for this one, and we're only going to have 1 foot on it at a time, so it doesn't need to be that wide. So just a regular size book. Right, so let's start off in standing. We'll do a little bit of a warm up to begin with, and then we'll crack on with it. So get yourselves up. The first thing we're going to do is find our good standing posture. We start at the top and we work our way down here. So imagine that we've got that big helium balloon attached to the crown of the head. That helium balloon's so big that it's pulling you tall through the spine, feeling like the back of the neck is flattening out and the chin is tucking in a little bit. And that balloon's just suspending you there. You then let the shoulder blades gently drop down and behind you, just to broaden the chest, bring those collarbones out a little bit. And then we're going to move down onto the pelvis. We're going to do some pelvic tilts. Hands on the pelvis, fingers at the front, thumbs at the back. Imagine that your pelvis is that big bucket of water that we're going to tip water out the front of, and then we're going to tip water out the back of. So water coming out the front of the bucket as we tilt forwards, out the back of the bucket as we tilt backwards. A couple of those tilts, and I want you to find that halfway position. That position where you're neither fully tilted forwards nor fully tilted backwards, somewhere in the middle, halfway in the middle if we can, and that creates that shallow curve in the lower back that we're going to call neutral lumbar spine. We're going to try and hold that there. Now, if you can keep that in place, keep your helium balloon in place, keep those shoulder blades in place. We're then going to move down onto the feet, and we're just going to allow our weight to sway forwards a little bit, onto the balls of the feet, and then backwards onto the heels. And we're just going to do a few repetitions of that. Just feel how those muscles in the back activate as you sway forwards, as you sway backwards. Tummy muscles should be kicking in a little bit. And then we're going to find that halfway position, equal weight bearing through the ball of the foot and the heel, so you feel like things are pretty evenly spread through the feet. We're going to keep that there for the moment. First exercise we're going to do in standing. We're going to call it foot series, and we're going to be bending the knees a little bit to begin with, but we're going to bend the hips as well a little bit, so it's like a mini squat. From there, I want you to take your weight forwards onto the balls of the feet so that we can lift the heels. Okay, heels are off the floor. Keeping the heels off the floor, straighten the knees out, slowly lower the heels down. Bend the knees, lean forwards, lift the heels, straighten up and down. I'm still trying to keep that neck in good posture, shoulder blades in good posture, neutral lumbar spine, all the time as I'm doing this. And of course we're breathing with each repetition. Every part of the movement we're allowing ourselves to breathe. Okay, a couple more repetitions there. Lifting those heels, straightening up and slowly back down. Okay, now we're going to get ourselves down into lying from here. So I'm going to stand at the end of my mat, as can you. We're going to start with a roll down. I'll stand so you can see me in the camera. We're going to roll the chin down onto the chest, shoulder blades roll forwards, bending one vertebra at a time between the shoulder blades, working down into the lower back, pushing the tailbone up towards the ceiling when the lower back is bending, so we get a stretch in the hamstrings as well. Taking your hands down as low as they feel they can go, and then working your way back out of it, tucking that tailbone under, slowly stacking one vertebra at a time on top of the one below it until we're fully upright into our starting position. We'll do one more repetition of that, rolling down. Visualize each joint going forwards on top of the one below it, and then as that lower back is bending, the tailbone goes up, so we get a nice hamstring stretch. And then when you're down in that position, you can allow yourself to then let the knees bend, hands go down onto the mat, knees onto the mat, and down we go. Now, we're going to start straight away inside lying. We're going to be targeting some buttock muscles here. Now, I'm going to be popping my forearm down on the mat. I'm resting on my elbow and forearm here, and I'm trying to make it as vertical as possible. So I don't want it too far out here. I want it kind of underneath my shoulder. My knees are bent with my knees stacked on top of one another, my ankles stacked on top of one another. What I'm trying to do here as well is lift my waist up. Okay, so as I look down my body, my shoulder, hips and feet are in line with one another. My knees are at a right angle just out in front of me. And what I'm trying to do from here is lift the hips up towards the ceiling, but I'm also going to bring them forwards at the same time. So there's two components to the movement. This hand can, if needed, give you a little bit of support in front. My neck, I should have said, stays in line with the rest of my spine. So I'm not dropping it down and I'm not lifting it up fully upright. So we're in line with the rest of the spine. Hand can stay on the floor. We're going to lift the hips up and push them forwards. And then we're going to take them down and back behind us to take us back to where we started from. But as I lower down, I have not let myself collapse. I'm going to keep that waist up, okay? Hand can stay on here, or it can stay on your hip. Elbow pointing to the ceiling, lift the hips up to the ceiling, push the hips forward, take the hips back and back down. We call this one a side bend, and we're working the muscles on the bum on the underside, so the hip that's closest to the floor is the one that's working at the moment. Slowly down there. Let's try for a few more repetitions. Up and forwards. Now, I never say squeeze your bum muscles with this. Just let the glutes do the work by themselves. So just think about lifting up and pushing the hips forwards, and you'll find they tend to do the work for you. Just remember, as we come back to the mat, that we come back and down, not just down. So it's up and forwards, back and down. We're going to do one more repetition, and then we're going to do some on the other side. Up and forwards, down and back. Okay, now let's switch sides. So don't leave that at the moment. So we're onto that other elbow, and we're going to have the feet, hips and shoulders in that straight line, in line with the body. Knees out in front of us. We're going to make sure that the waist is not collapsing down to the floor. So this rib cage should feel like it's being pulled up and supported up into the air. We're going to lift the hips up and forwards, down and back. And if you feel like you need a bit of help with your balance, put your fingertips on the floor to give you that little bit of balance. If your balance is really good, maybe don't have it on the hip. Have a hand up in the air. So we can start, hand up in the air, lift it up towards the ceiling, push those hips forwards, take them down and back. You can bring the hand up and down in between repetitions if you wanted to add that shoulder movement into it. Or you can just keep it on the hip throughout, in the air throughout, whichever you feel you can manage. Still breathing with each repetition, breathing out as you lift up and forwards, breathing in as we come back down, and we're going to do a couple more repetitions there. Up and forwards, down and back, up and forwards, down and back, and have a little bit of a rest there. Okay, staying in this position on your side. This is where you need your folded towel. We're going to do an exercise called the clam. We are going to be using the towel rolled just to support the head, and the arm that we're lying on, if the shoulder will tolerate it, is going to be out in front of us. Okay, you can bend it up here if it's comfortable to get it out of the way, but most people like it out in front. My feet, hips and shoulders are all in that straight line still. Knees are out in front of me. Okay, knees and ankles stacked on top of one another. My feet are in contact at the ball of the foot and at the heel. I'm going to be trying to not let my pelvis roll backwards, which is what it'll probably want to do. So think about bringing that hip forwards, and then we need to think about what's happening at the spine. We should have a little gap under the waist, okay? There should be a little bit of fresh air under there. You should be able to get your hand under it. Don't let your waist collapse down into the mat. Lift it up by pushing this top hip down toward your feet. You will feel that the waist levers up a little bit. And if your head can be supported whilst you're there, this hand now can either stay on the floor in front of you, or we can put it on the hip. Now I can see my elbow out of my peripheral vision. I'm going to make sure it stays there as I lift that top knee. And I don't need to go very high. We just take it up a couple of inches and back down. It tends to be the case if you take it too high, your pelvis rolls backwards. You're not using your glutes anymore then, you're using something else. So we're going to try and keep that pelvis still. So can you see that elbow? Keep it in your sight. Breathing out as we lift, breathing in as we lower back down. And I'm doing all of this, maintaining that gap underneath the waist. And we should feel the effort of this just around the back of the hip. If you're feeling it around the front a little bit more, it means you've leant backwards a little bit. It might be that you just need to roll that top hip forwards a touch, and you might find that it then targets those muscles at the back of the hip a little bit more so. And we're going to just do another couple of repetitions there, And we're going to be trying it on the other side as well. Okay, couple more reps. You sometimes find one side's a bit stronger than the other here as well, so you'll feel one fatigue before the other. Right, let's have a look over on the other side. Okay, right then, so we are down. We've got the arm out in front of us. We've got those feet, hips and shoulders all in that straight line. We're going to have the knees bent to a right angle just out in front. And this hand again, it can be on the floor or it can be on the hip. Make sure when it's on the hip, you can feel that that top hip is being pushed down toward the floor and that you've created that gap underneath the waist. Keep that gap in place. Keep that elbow just in sight. And as we lift that top knee, see how that feels. Pivoting on the ball and heel, ball of the foot and heel, on top of the foot below, and just making sure as you start to get to the top of that movement with the knee, just keep an eye on that elbow, make sure it's not swinging back out of your view. Breathing out as we lift up, breathing in as we lower back down. How does that side feel compared to the other side? Does it fatigue any quicker? Does it feel like it's a bit stronger? Can you move a little bit further? And again, if you feel like it's coming more from the front of the hip rather than the back, just allow your hip to roll forwards a touch, almost like you're tilting forwards, and you might just be able to see that elbow a little bit clearer by tilting forwards. A couple more repetitions, then we're going to move into something else. Okay, one more there, and then have a little rest. Okay, so now we're going to have a turn onto our back. We're going to do some shoulder bridge exercises. Now, I did some of this on my last video, my last Pilates video, and we did the basic level 1 shoulder bridge. So I'm going to whiz through that, but I'm going to add in some modifications today. So it's not really strictly Pilates, but they're useful modifications nonetheless. So we're going to start with the knees bent roughly to a right angle. The closer the heels are, the better it is for targeting your bum muscles, and it takes some of the pressure out of the glutes. So if you feel like you need it, bring the heels in a little bit. If you can manage it, keep them at somewhere close towards a right angle. We're going to let the shoulder blades set down, chin tucked in toward your throat. We're going to find that neutral lumbar spine by doing a few of those pelvic tilts, flattening the back into the floor, roll it away a little bit, and find that halfway point. Keep that there, and then from there, we're going to tilt the tailbone up towards the ceiling, flattening the back into the floor, and start to peel one vertebra at a time away from the floor. We don't need to go too high, halfway up the back, slowly lower back into the floor. So think of this as a bit of a warm-up. You're just making those glutes do a little bit of work. We're not squeezing them or clenching them. We're just thinking about tilting the pelvis a little bit. Okay. And we're going to do a couple more repetitions of this. And on this next repetition, you're going to hold it up into the air. So get it up into the bridge. Hold it in the bridge. Hands under your bum. Okay. You're not supporting your bum. But what I want you to do is just feel how both sides are working a little bit. There should be a little bit of pressure, a little bit of firmness in the muscle. Now what I want you to do is on one side, just lower it on one side only into your hand. So you're going to allow the hip to drop down a little bit on one side. And as you drop it, you might feel that the muscle lets go a little bit. And then you bring that back up. And then the opposite side drops down a little bit. And then you bring that back up. So we're letting go on one side, but trying to stay active on the other. Lift that up, lower on the other side. So the pelvis rotates a little bit as we do this. We're allowing it to rotate because we're letting go on one side but maintaining activity on the other. Now this one doesn't naturally come to us straight away. Sometimes it takes a few days of having a go at it to get it right. So I just want you to practice that, maybe just doing half a dozen on each side, dropping on one side and trying to let go, bringing it back up, dropping on the other side, letting it go, bringing it back up, okay? And when we've done maybe half a dozen on each side, we're going to roll back out the bridge. So that's a nice little variation on the theme there. So now we're going to go back into a traditional shoulder bridge, Pilates style bridge, where we're going to lift one leg off the air, into the air. If you've ever done this one before, you know that it's quite demanding to keep the pelvis stable. This is where we're not going to let the pelvis rotate. We're going to try and keep it nice and flat. So imagine we've got a spirit level on the front of the pelvis. Fingertips can be the sensors for that. By having your fingers on the front, you're going to take yourself up into the bridge and you're going to take the weight slowly off one foot, lifting the heel, then straightening that knee out, keeping that pelvis nice and level, taking that foot back onto the floor it came from, rolling back out of the bridge. So we're only doing one leg lift per shoulder bridge. Lift that up, lift the opposite leg. What happens to the pelvis? Do you feel like you're just as strong at holding it? Or do you feel like there's a bit of a give? Or maybe there's a give on the other one, but not this one. So get an idea, what does your right versus left feel like? And you have to do a few repetitions of this to get the gist of it, okay? If you feel like as you lift the leg, the pelvis drops a little bit, it means that the standing leg is a little bit weak. So you might need to just go a little bit more carefully as you lift the foot. Take a little bit more time over lifting the foot from the floor so you can work at keeping the pelvis stable as you do the movement. Okay, we're going to do one more on each side here. Slowly rolling back down, still making sure each bridge up and down is done with quality and control, and you maintain that stability as you straighten the leg. Breathing out as we roll back out of that bridge, breathing in as we come back up. Don't worry about the breathing too much, doesn't really matter if it goes the other way around as long as you're breathing. And then slowly roll back out. Okay, so there's a couple of variations of shoulder bridge. Find a level that you can manage and stick at doing a few more repetitions, maybe a couple of sets of those. Okay, we're going to move into something a little bit different now. We're going to come back up into standing. So we're going to take our time to roll over. We're going to do a bit of a reverse of a roll down to get back out. So we took the toes under into a crouch, and then we're going to stick the tailbone up towards the ceiling to roll back out. Okay, now we're going to do an exercise where we're going to do some releasing of the hips, vertical hip release, starting nice and tall, healing balloons in place, shoulder blades are set, neutral lumbar spine, find that equal weight bearing through the ball of the foot and the heels. Once you've got that in place, we're going to allow the hip, knee and ankle to bend. So it's a little bit like the exercise we started with earlier on in the set. And we're going to make sure this time all we're doing is bending and straightening. Now the temptation here is we go too deep into it and we start to stick the bum out behind us. We're not squatting, we're only going as maybe a couple of inches down and then back up. But sometimes we forget to let go of the hips, so end up leaning backwards as we do it. So the idea is the front of the hips relax, the bum sits down and the hips bend as well as the knees and ankles. So it's almost like a concertina ring of your legs up and down. Use a mirror to get this one right if you're not too sure. Okay, and we're going to do a couple more repetitions there. This one's quite useful, just learning to let go of the buttock muscles and then bring a just gentle contraction back in. We're not clenching, we're just moving. Okay, right. Nice and easy that one, just to remind the glutes what they're meant to be doing. Now we're going to do an exercise that's a little bit harder. I call it marching on the spot because that's all it is. It's not really a Pilates exercise, I don't think, but I find it quite useful because it shows up a lot of weaknesses that people don't know that they have. We're going to put our hands on our hips, and again, useful to use a mirror, using the bottom of your t-shirt line or your belt line to get an idea of what's happening at the pelvis. I'm going to imagine that I've got a plumb line hanging from my nose all the way through, and that plumb line needs to stay in the middle as I do this movement. And all I'm going to do is, starting with those feet, again in our neutral standing position, equal weight bearing through the forefoot and the heel, and I'm going to peel my left heel from the floor, and then I'm going to try and lift the toe away from the floor without deviating from that central plumb line. I'm also going to be feeling what happens at my pelvis. Does my pelvis hitch? Do I lean over to make that happen? Or can I keep everything nice and still? You might find you want to get your feet a little bit closer if it's a bit of a struggle. Keep that pelvis nice and level, lift that knee, take it back down. And we're marching on the spot, so we switch sides, we lift the heel, we peel the toes, we bring it back up. And start to feel with the hands what the pelvis is doing. If you feel like your hip on the knee that you're lifting starts to hitch upwards, you know that's where you stop. So you might not get that knee all the way off, up towards hip height. So just work the range that you can control, up and down, and side on. We stay tall, we peel the heel, lift the toe, lift the knee, slowly back. Trying not to lean backwards as we do it. Okay, so we stay upright, that healing balloon is still keeping us in place as we go through the movement. Okay, So this should give you a little bit more awareness about your centre line, making sure that your centre line isn't deviating as you take 1 foot from the floor, okay? Try and keep it as still as you can, as central as you can. A little bit of deviation is acceptable, that's fine, but just try and work to minimise that. Okay, now we're going to build on that idea with our book or our step. Now, this exercise is called the running man, and all we're going to do here is get the arms moving as we do a step up. So it's a step up with the arms moving. It's a pretty common exercise, and you can really use what you've just been learning to make this one a little bit better. So we're going to start off with 1 foot on your step, hands on the pelvis to begin with, and then we just straighten the knee, lifting that opposite knee up and lock out that standing knee. Slowly unlock that standing knee as you come back down. Getting that standing knee as straight as you can, knee up to hip height, and again try not to let yourself move from that midline. If I do this straight on to face you, you'll see what I mean. Okay, as I bring this up, as I keep my hands on my pelvis, it'd be very easy for me just to lean over and lift my knee. But what I want to try and do is keep that midline, that plumb line in place. So trying to keep pelvis level, plumb line in place, knee fully locking out at the top of the movement, and then slowly unlocking on the way back down. There are all sorts of hairs we can split with this exercise, but that'll do for the moment, I think. Now we're going to bring the arms into this exercise. So this is where it gets confusing. Adding a layer of coordination always makes things interesting. So we're going to be moving opposite arm and leg at the same time, okay? So that means that as I bring one knee up, I'm bringing the opposite hand up, okay? Because that's how we walk and run. Although almost everybody gets it wrong to begin with. So give that one a bit of a whirl. When you've realised you're doing it wrong, have another go. Just have a look. Is it that opposite arm and knee coming up at the same time? And again, we're staying tall through the crown. We're locking out that standing leg. I know we can't have our hands on the pelvis at the same time, but that doesn't really matter at the moment. If you feel like you've got that midline right and you're ready to progress on to moving those arms, it'll probably all fall into place for you. And of course, we don't want to just work one side of our body, we want to work the other, okay? Now I like to use a mirror when I'm teaching this one with clients because sometimes you can't see what's going wrong. So it's a good idea to get hold of a mirror, ideally a full length one, and if you can stand in front of it whilst you do these, you'll find it a lot easier to get it right. Okay, so opposite arm and leg, up we go, straighten that knee, slowly back down. Straighten that knee, slowly back down. Okay, take about 5 to 6 seconds per repetition. So that's 2 to 3 seconds on the way up. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, make some sets out of this one. So you probably do 2 or 3 sets of maybe 6 or 8 repetitions of this on each side. And build the height of the step up. Add another book onto it. Make it a little bit harder by lifting the height that you're pressing up from. Okay. Now I'm going to leave it at that for today. I'm going to bring more Pilates exercises mixed in with other things that I use quite often over the next few days and weeks. So I hope you're enjoying it. If you do, share it with your friends. If you've got any comments on anything I can improve on, just let me know. Okay, speak to you later. Bye-bye.